and bring in Steiner Sports CEO, Brandon Steiner.
One of the country's top memorabilia mogul.
I have an unbelievable guest, Brandon Steiner.
Brandon's second to none.
Welcome, Mark Eaton. How
Thanks,
are you,
Brandon.
my friend?
It's great to be here today.
NBA, Utah Jazz, little college basketball, but I see you have a new book. Before we get to the book, why? How'd you end up playing basketball? Was it just strictly on your height, or was it? How did that work out? I mean, how does that
No,
work?
I have a rather unusual story of how I became an NBA player. I was a 21-year-old auto mechanic working in Southern California in a tire store, and a junior college coach convinced me to give basketball another try.
So you're actually in a garage fixing cars.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. I did not play much in high school in Southern California. I sat on the bench, and after high school I decided, athletics weren't for me, even though I was probably 6'11" at that time. And I was still growing, and so I went to trade school for a year to learn to be an auto mechanic in Arizona, and moved back to Southern California. Promptly got fired from the first job I was in, and moved to a tire and auto center in Buena Park, California, and a junior college coach who'd worked with a couple of big guys, most notably a guy named Swen Nader, who played at UCLA and played in the ABA and the NBA for a long time. And he understood the big man game, how to play basketball as a big guy, which was different than training a guard or a forward or someone else. And so he, over a period of visits, it took him a couple of months to convince me, because I was not happy about everyone coming in my shop telling me what I should be doing. But he convinced me to give it just a 30-minute try on a basketball court one Saturday morning, and taught me some things about how to be a big guy on the basketball court that I could be successful with. And at that point in time, I decided to start working out with him after work, spent a few months doing that, and then eventually went back to junior college for 2 years, and then on to UCLA, and then on to 12 years with the Utah Jazz.
Wow, that was UCLA. Everything was cracked up to be, because that's like, the mother lode when it gets to playing college basketball. UCLA, was it cool?
No, it didn't work out very well for me.
Okay.
I played for Larry Brown the first year, and actually sat for him, and Larry
Has
Farmer.
Larry Brown coached every NBA
I
team,
think so.
college? Okay, see,
Yeah,
he's been around.
He's been everywhere.
And that wasn't a good fit.
It wasn't. The year before, they had gone to the finals against Louisville and lost to Louisville and Darrell Griffith, who became my teammate, but with the Jazz. And I thought, well, this would be a good fit for me from a visibility standpoint. But they really didn't know what to do with me. I was kind of an unknown factor, and so I ended up sitting on the bench there for 2 years. So
you barely played at UCLA.
I think I played 51 minutes my senior year.
Had to be frustrated, but you got your education. But you were frustrated, or?
Yeah, I was very frustrated, because I'd started this program with my junior college coach at Cypress College, and we'd won the state championship, and things were looking good. And I had my pick of any school I wanted to go to across the nation. And growing up in Southern California, obviously during the Wooden era, UCLA was it in terms of college basketball. And so it was a bit of a risk on my part, but I thought, hey, I'll give it a shot.
What was the turnaround there? I mean, God, 2 years is a long time to sit on the bench. It'd be like me being in my office not being able to use my phone.
Well,
you know what I mean? It's just, frustrating.
It was frustrating. Two things happened. One is that between my junior and senior year, I would go and work out at the men's gym every day, where they had these amazing pickup games. Magic was there, James Worthy, Norm Nixon, all these great players, and I would go and work out there. And one day, I was running up and down the court trying to catch this little guy, Rocket Rod Foster, a Connecticut guy, who was on our team, and I couldn't catch him, and I was having a tough time, and I was really trying to think, what do I need to do to get better? Like, I'm not fast enough, I don't seem to be quick enough. And I was on the sidelines and kind of feeling sorry for myself a little bit, and I feel this big hand on my shoulder, and I turn around, and it was Wilt Chamberlain, and he pulled me around and looked me in the eye and said, first of all, young fella, you are never going to catch that guy. And I said, well, Wilt, thank you, I know that. And he said, more importantly, it's not your job. And so he said, come with me. And he took me out on the court, and he put me in front of the basket. And he said, you see this basket behind you? He said, your job is to stop players from getting there. Your job is to make them miss their shot, collect the rebound, and throw it up to the guard, let them go down the other end and score it. And your job is to kind of cruise up to half court and see what's going on. And it was this light bulb moment for me where I finally understood what I could do well out on the basketball court. And he said, your job is just to stop these guys from getting there. And so I quit doing everything else, and I said focused on the one thing that I could be great at. And it was a real great moment for me in terms of where I needed to go, where I knew I needed to go with my career. Now, even though I didn't play much the next year at UCLA, I continued to follow his advice. And 4 years later, I broke the NBA record for the most block shots in a single season.
So you took that advice to heart. I guess it really does come down to the one thing. Find something you're good at and just keep pushing that button hard.
Right. Now,
was anybody else in those pickup games?
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of guys there. One of the other guys, Leon Wood, who's an NBA official now. He was a big gym rat there. Kiki Vanderway, who I saw a couple of days ago down in Charlotte.
Kiki was
out there.
Scorer.
He was out there.
He could do it all.
Jamal Wilkes was there every day. There's a lot of. You go back to some of the old Lakers. Jimmy Price, name from the past, played for the Lakers back in the '70s. So there's a lot of guys. I mean, it was the place in Los Angeles to test your skills against one another every afternoon there. And
who's the guy that had the confidence in you, though, on the pro level that said, I'm going to take a chance on you?
Well, so what we did is after my senior year and things weren't going well is we literally got out the NBA statistics. My coach, Tom, from my junior college, Tom Lubin is his name, he and I got out the NBA stats, and we started calling NBA teams on the phone. Maybe you can imagine cold calling NBA teams asking for a tryout, right? And the Jazz, were coached by Frank Layden at that point in time. He was the GM. He actually answered the phone when we called because back then the front office of the Jazz could probably fit inside this studio. And there weren't a lot of people there. And so, he's like, Mark Eaton, I've never heard of him, but send me some video. And in the meantime, while we had done that, I'd also gone and played in a couple of tryout places where you kind of paid your own way. One was in Jersey City at St. Peter's College. There was another one in Cincinnati I went to. A couple of NBA scouts there, gave a little feedback to Frank. He took a chance on me and drafted me in the 4th round, which is not necessarily anything exciting. But he came out and watched me play in a summer league. Larry Brown gave me a spot on his New Jersey summer league team at Loyola Marymount, and Frank came out and watched me play. He said, I can tell you're kind of rough, but he says, I'm willing to take a chance on you for 1 year if you'll come out early and work out with our coaches. And so I got an agent, Keith Glass, and he put together a little contract for me. I think I got $40,000 guaranteed the first year to go with Frank.
Who was the starting center at that point?
The starting center then was a guy named Jeff Wilkins, who played at Illinois State, who Frank had found in a CBA team up in Montana somewhere. We were kind of a ragtag group of guys back then, but Frank felt if he could get somebody from a big program, that at least you'd been exposed to winning in college, and that might give you a little bit of an edge. And so we had guys like Adrian Dantley, Darrell Griffith, Ricky Green played at Michigan, Jeff Wilkins, and we had John Drew that we got from the Atlanta Hawks. We traded Dominique to the Atlanta Hawks for $1 million and 2 players to make payroll. And then halfway through my rookie season, to make payroll again, they traded. And Danny Shays was there too. Was also the starting center.
He's always a Syracuse guy in the mix.
Yeah,
Come
yeah,
on.
Yeah.
How many years did Danny Shays? I mean, if you talk about you talk about a guy who made the most out of his talent.
He did. Danny played for a long time. So, but halfway through my rookie year, they traded Danny to the Nuggets for Rich Kelly, another center, and $300,000 to make payroll. And I got the starting center job because of that. And I'm like,
payroll.
Okay, exactly. So that's how I got the starting job with the Jazz. And I said, okay, if I'm going to be a starting center, I want to be a good starting center. And so I got back in the gym and back in the weight room, and because I learned early on playing against the likes of Bob Lanier and Artis Gilmore and Kareem and these guys that I needed to get stronger. And I made it my goal to be the strongest guy out there on the court. And I think short of maybe Daryl Dawkins, I probably was most of my career. Because I wanted to be the guy pushing people around, not the one getting pushed.
Was there key to your strength and conditioning? Was it weights? Was it?
It was weights. It was weights. It was running. It was nutrition. All those things. I just dove deep into it and like, what else can I learn? And so I worked out with these football guys, doing squats and cleans and things like that. Where maybe wasn't the best thing for my back long term, but man, I got stronger.
But when you're this big, you're 7'4". I mean, do you have to eat like that much more than, let's say, a guy that's like 5'7" or 5'8"?
Well, it wasn't so much about the quantity as the quality.
But you are eating more than the average Joe.
Oh yeah, definitely when you're playing.
So
you're burning
eating
a lot of
healthy
calories.
and double healthy.
Right,
You're
double
doubling
healthy.
down on everything, right?
Yeah, doubling
So you got to
down.
be really careful, otherwise.
Yeah,
you
and
could
then
be,
you remember the '80s. They had books like Eat to Win and the Zone Diet and all these different things that were coming back out then. So I paid attention to those, and I worked with some pretty key people to kind of
favorite
help
book
me.
on that? You have a favorite book on that diet? They really a favorite diet?
I've kind of gone more paleo later in life. I think the extra protein, I think, is what's working for me. In the 80s, it was all about the carbs. When Martina came out and talked about that in her book, I think it was that Eat to Win, the one with Martina Navratilova.
Fit for Life also is another one. Yeah,
carbo loading, things
Fit
like
for
that
Life
was popular. Although I always go back to Michael Jordan, who used to eat a big steak like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm thinking that's probably the direction we should have gone back then, as opposed to more carbo. But that was the thing back then, was carbo loading.
All right, let's talk about. And you're not new to the books, but this is your new book, The 4 Commitments of a Winning Team. Why this book, and who is this book for?
So I spend most of my time speaking to companies and corporations about teamwork, about getting rid of that internal competition. And I had the unique advantage of playing team, like a lot of your guests, at the highest level. The NBA, there's only 400 players. It's a pretty elite group of people. And we had a very unique situation in Utah where I came into a team that was really poor and not doing well in the market. And using these principles over the next couple of years, became a playoff contender and actually ran off a series of 20 consecutive playoff appearances based on the principles that I talk about in this book. And so the book is a compilation of these 4 commitments, and they're things that you can use as a manager, as a CEO, to help you understand what teamwork is like from the inside out. So you're getting rid of the infighting, really being there for your teammates. A lot of people in business talk about teamwork, but very few really know how to create it. And so I'm giving you some proven tips and techniques and steps in here, along with some great stories of both the NBA and some business people to share with you how to create a better team and how to be a better teammate.
Because you think about, like, when you negotiate a contract, very rarely is it how good a team player you are. It's based on points per game, how many home runs, your sales you had the previous year, or your margin. It's not whether you were a good, office mate, a good fellow employee, a good person. That stat doesn't come up. Were you a good clubhouse person? We're going to give you a raise. You were really good in the clubhouse. Based on that stat, we're going to give you some more money. So this kind of works in between the lines of what a lot of people think are important, which are always the numbers.
Well, let me tell you a story about that.
Yeah.
So when I first came to the Jazz, bad market, bad team, never had a winning season, right? I mean, we used to give away posters of other teams' players to get people to come to the arena, right?
Wow.
I mean, we had Dr. J poster night, Larry Bird poster night, whatever it was, Magic Johnson poster night. And Frank Layden, our coach, said, look, if you guys will stop competing with each other and start cooperating with each other a little bit, the individual accolades will show up. And we call that making each other look good. So we would do things like start passing the ball a little bit more, not get as worried about our stats and our points, and started trusting each other a little bit more, started cooperating a little bit more. And over time, over the next year, we went from a cellar dweller to making the playoffs for the first time in team history, winning the division for the first time in team history. And we ended up with 4 individual statistical leaders in the NBA. My second year in the NBA, I led the NBA in block shots. Adrian Dantley led the NBA in scoring. Darrell Griffith led the NBA in three-point shooting. And Ricky Green led the NBA in steals. So the individual accolades showed up because we won as a team. And Frank would always tell us, no one cares if you're scoring a lot of points on a losing team, right? Everybody wants the players from a winning team.
You have a really, really nice testimonial and a little forward from John Stockton.
Yes.
Tell me about what's your relationship with John Stockton, because we don't really hear a lot about maybe one of the great point guards of all time, certainly a great assist leader. What's John like, and what's your relationship with John? Because he doesn't throw his name on out of anything.
No.
So you must have something going on with John. What's the deal with John?
He was one of my favorite teammates of all time, and he showed up my third year, unknown player from a small school in Spokane, Washington. Learned his job over the next couple of years playing behind Ricky Green, and then, as we all know, became a Hall of Fame player, all-time leader in assists and steals in the history of the NBA. He was a guy who just flat wanted to win, and he was all about winning every day. Didn't want to talk about it a lot, even to the press. He just wanted to go out there and play hard and win. And he learned his job. He knew what he was supposed to do out there on the court, and he made everybody around him better. And you could come limping into the locker room, and he'd just kind of give you the eye, like, you will be out there tonight, right? I mean, it was a different era of basketball. We didn't miss games. We played every night, and John was kind of our spiritual leader out there on the court, because he just had this energy about him that even sitting next to him in the locker room, you got pumped up, like, I want to win tonight. And that's what he was all about. Has been all about his whole life. And so he and I spent a lot of time together on the road and hanging out
and he was a guy
talking
who
basketball.
about winning. They talk about there's 2 I's of winning. I did a blog today. There's no I in lose. There's no I in sucks. I mean, so like, nobody wants to lose. Nobody wants to not do well. And I think winning sometimes is a little bit underrated. This book, if you're a basketball fan, this is a book for you. But also, if you're somebody who loves to compete, wants to really understand what it takes to go and create a competitive environment, a culture in your company, this is a book for you?
Yes, it is, because I've got some great examples in there from some of the people I interviewed, such as Dave Checketts, or when he was running Madison Square Garden, or Junior Bridgman is another guy interviewed in there, who's another kind of unknown guy who was asked. He was traded for Kareem when he first came out of college. He came to the Bucks. Don Nelson sat him down and said, "I need you to be a role player, right? I need you to be that 6th guy." So we talk about that, but then look at what he went on to do. He's the 2nd largest franchise holder in America. Has over 200 restaurants.
Wow.
And has now become one of the top Coca-Cola bottling guys out there in Louisville.
Ben, we got to track him down, by the way. Yeah, we got to track him down. This is like the 3rd time his name has come up, and we got to find out what's it.
He's an amazing guy.
What's the secret to that sauce?
Right. And
but
so
anyway,
how do you manage 20,000 employees and still keep a winning team?
So you got some insight from him in here, too.
Insights of guys
now,
like that.
You're pre-ordering this book on Amazon or
Amazon,
Barnes & Noble?
Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It's on both sites, and you can pre-order it now. It comes out April 3rd.
The good news is that a lot of our people that love these shows are sports fans. Hopefully, there's a lot of photos in here, because
there is.
Sometimes they struggle a little bit with the reading. So I always want to prefer when there's a lot of photos.
There's some photos, yes.
Yeah, I always put a lot of photos in my books.
8 pages of them.
I'm just saying, not everybody out there, but you know what I'm talking about, right? The game today, though. Happy for these players, or do you feel like they tend to get a little soft, or is the schedule these back-to-backs? Maybe that's got to be kind of alleviated, because you guys were flying coach, right? You guys were flying on commercial.
Yeah, we flew all commercial.
No team planes?
There was no team planes, no. And it was a different era. I mean, I'm glad I played in that era, because we went out after a game. We got to know each other. There was, I think the camaraderie that we developed, hanging out, having a beer after the game in the hotel bar or something like that, really helped the cohesiveness and the rapport on our team, and with the coaches, sitting down with the coaches and talking about the game and how we could do things better or differently. I think was a big part of who we were back then. Now today, the money obviously is much different than it was back then. A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. What do you like about today's game?
I think that we see some aspects that I really like. You look at the Spurs dynasty, you look at how the Warriors play the game, you look at how the Cavs have done. I like some of these teams because I think that the international impact has influenced team play. I think there's more passing of the ball. I think there's a little less of the one-on-one, and I think it's become more of a team game. Now, some people are going to disagree with me and argue that fact, but if you look at the teams that win, the ones that go deep into the playoffs, that's the mindset they have. You looked at that game recently with when LeBron scored his 30,000th point against the Spurs, who've had some injury issues. What'd they do? Just went out and played defense. What'd they do? They won. So that's the part of the aspect. That's the aspect of the game I really like.
You've been great on the high pick and roll, though. How's somebody getting through you?
Right. Yeah. High pick and roll was usually run by John Stockton and Karl Malone, but yes, I did a good job doing that.
The master of that. What was it like playing? Did you play with Malone?
I did. I played with Karl for 8 or 9 years.
What was that like?
He was a warrior out there. He came in. Adrian Dantley kind of took him under his wing a little bit, because Adrian was always in great shape. And he told Karl, look, if you want to play 12 years in this league, and Karl ended up playing, I think, 18, you've got to get yourself in shape. You got to take care of yourself. And so Karl took that advice, got in the weight room, got in the spin classes, did whatever he needed to do to hone his body so that he could play night after night. And he knew that the referees were not going to call every time he went to the basket. So he had to learn how to get stronger so he could go through people and still score despite not getting a call. And he did it day after day after day, ready to play 30 points a night, night after night, year after year, an incredible player.
If I read this book, which I will, what's one of the big takeaways? What's something that someone's going to get out of this book? If you're out there and you're running a business, or you're a basketball fan, or a salesperson, or a manager, what's a big takeaway?
I think the biggest takeaway is the understanding, and this is what I get back from a lot of audiences I speak to, that they really need to be there for the people around them. That goes beyond just sitting in a cubicle and having somebody else sit next to you. That the real juice, the stuff that makes teams work, is your willingness to help the person around you get ahead, the person next to you, the person above you. How can I help you? What else can I do for you? How can I assist you? Because that's the essence of teamwork. And I think that's what is, we all need great motivational messages on a regular basis, right, regardless of where they come from. But I think my particular take on it is that I was always there for my teammates. I was there to back them up. They could go out and try and steal the ball. They knew that I'd get between their man and the basket before they scored. So that protecting other people and making other people look good, I think, are the two big takeaways that I hear back again and again and again, along with focusing on the one thing that I can be great at, that knowing your job, and obviously execution is in there as well. So I think those are the biggest takeaways that I hear back regularly from the audiences.
I like knowing your value too. What is your value to the group, to the company, to your office mate, to your teammate? What's
Right.
the best value you provide? And I define value as, what can you do for the team that maybe the team can't do for itself at that moment or that time period? Because if you can actually think about the value that you can provide, and it may change a little bit, or maybe the thing you do best, which is what you're talking about, the one thing in this book, then you become a valuable teammate. You become a valuable part of it all.
Right.
Because you're taking your value and also you're thinking of the team, of how you can help best the team, not what makes you feel best or look best.
Yeah, what do people really want from you? And I think there's two aspects to that question. One was what Wilt Chamberlain told me about finding the one thing that I could really succeed at and be excellent at out on the basketball court, which was breaking basketball down into little parts and playing defense as the number one thing. And secondly, it's I think in an office setting, it's about when's the last time you asked somebody what you could do for them or what you could be doing differently, or going into the manager or the boss and saying, look, I'm doing this well, and we're focusing on that. Is there anything else I could be doing? Is there anything else I should be more focused on?
I think if an employee came into my office and started asking me what else they could do to help, I'm not sure. You'd probably have to call an ambulance. I mean, Brandon, how can I help the team? How can I help the company? Something you need me to do before I leave? No problem if you need me to stay late this week. Every cardiac arrest.
That's true. Well, people are usually afraid to go.
But that
ask.
stuff moves me. I like that. Yeah, if you're an employee, I love it. That stuff moves me as a boss. I think it's invaluable.
Well, it is.
Yeah,
and
that's
people
what you're
usually,
talking about.
People are typically afraid to ask. They're afraid to actually go in because they're afraid that the boss might think I don't know how to do my job. And so that's why I preface it by going in and saying, well, these are the things I'm doing now. Here's what we've talked about in the past. Is there anything else I should be more focused on? Or something else I should be doing, because that's the only way you're going to get the information that you need to know how you succeed and how are you going to win. And so I think having the courage to ask that and then precisely executing it are really keys to showing your value as an employee, and that you're really engaged in what the mission of the of the company is. Where are we all going? I mean, that's I always need to know that. Where do I fit? where it's my role, and I just want to know that I'm doing a good job. And I think if you don't ask, you're not going to know. And it's the same old thing. If the coach isn't talking to you on a regular basis, you need to worry, right? Just like on a basketball team, if they're yelling and screaming at you all the time, great, because they know you're engaged, that they care about what you're doing and you care about your performance. But if you're not talking to anybody and you haven't heard from people for a while, it might be time to go check in.
No news is not always good news. Hold on one second. Let me recap here, man. Which camera am I at, Ben? Let me recap. First of all, find the one thing you're good at and find that button and keep pressing it. Just don't stop. And then the second thing is get up off your ass now, go to your boss, go to your teammate, go to your office mate, and ask, how can I help you? What can I do to make you better? What can I do to make the company better? I'm here to help. I want to do more. And that's a productive day. You're going to have a great Monday if you do those two things. Think about your value and just put it right on that button and keep pressing it. And then get up off your ass and go and actually find somebody that you can actually help. Maybe they're sitting around you. It's another teammate, your boss, your coach. Coach, how can I help this team win more games? Not how can I play more. Not how can I get more touches. How can I help this team win? I'm going to do whatever it takes. And what can I do to be better? What can I do to make the team better? You do that, boy, that's winning. But is that what the book's trying to captivate?
Yes, it is.
I'm feeling this book right now. I'm feeling it. I'm excited. The 4 Commitments of a Winning Team with Mark Eaton. I love that. By the way, you can pre-order this book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. That's another thing you have to do today besides getting up, finding out what you do best, going in with some of your teammates. Order the book. Something. Am I asking too much? Really? No. Tell me, how's this season going to play out? Does the best team win? Because that's going to be another. Is it going to be another Golden State, Cleveland, or are we going to see a surprise here?
Well, I don't know. You look at what the Warriors are done, obviously, but then also what the Celtics might be the sleeper team that pop up this time.
Can they pull it together? Because it seems like they're kind of struggling now.
I know. Well, it's all about momentum at the time of the playoffs. So let's look at the second half of the season and see who's starting to really hit their stride. There's some teams out there. The Rockets, who knows? Maybe they come back into the picture. I think there's some good teams out there, and I think there's been some interesting moves made the last year or two to help shore up some of the all-star talent. So
guard play, with Houston.
Yeah.
Those are 2 cats that are not easy to guard.
No, they're not.
And they cause a lot of problems. I'm wondering how easy it will be to stop them. And they got a chip on their shoulder.
Right.
So they're not happy campers. Like they want respect. They want to see what those finals feel like. So Golden State's going to have their hands full. But then Boston, they're young too. They got a little chip.
Yeah, and those guys get tired of reading about the Cavs and reading about the Warriors and like, hey, what about us? And so maybe there's one of those teams that'll be surprising and really pull it together, in late April.
Now, are you all over the country speaking? Is it obviously on this book, but you talk about some other things that I think are important, with some of your other books. And by the way, this is your second book?
No, this is my first book. This is the first one.
First book,
yeah.
Your other talk, you did a talk that I thought was relevant because I remember when you came here and spoke the last time. What's the big takeaway on that?
Well, it's basically the same principles, teamwork, and we go a little deeper into it during the presentation because I have an hour and a half to really dig in and ask some key questions. So, for instance, under like knowing your job, it's really are there character traits and skills that you possess that you could leverage more? So, I always talk to people about we run around a lot of times thinking, well, I don't do this well and I don't do that well, and I should learn how to do this better, learn how to. And what I'm saying is no. Like, let's go back in the book. There's a chart of character traits and skills that you could easily just send out to 3 or 4 people and say, hey, what do you think is my greatest character trait? Is it honesty? Is it loyalty, et cetera? What's my greatest skill? Is it planning? Is it organizing? Is it strategizing? Is it leading? Any of those types of things. And how can I do more of those? So I actually ask you to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 on those items once you've identified them, and then sit back and say, okay, if I hear from other people that they really respect me as a coach, and I rate myself only as about a 4 right now as a coach, maybe I should look back at my tasks and my priorities and say, how can I coach other people a little bit more? Are there people I need to spend more time with? Is there somebody I need to go get a cup of coffee with or acknowledge a little bit more? I think one of the things I hear a lot too is that people don't celebrate wins. there's so much stuff going on in our lives. There's so much pressure to perform. And I was just at this refinery for Phillips 66 a couple weeks ago in Oklahoma, and these guys doing a tremendous job. But there's so much, and rightly so, a lot of pressure on doing it safely and doing things like that. That a lot of times they don't take time to step back and just acknowledge people and congratulate them for the job they're doing. And so celebrating the wins, I think, is a real important aspect
a good point.
that a lot of times
Absolutely.
people forget. It's just like, hey, great job, great sales this month. All right, now here's the next month. Let's get going again. Because it's got to be fun, right? I mean, people.
I think it's got to be fun. And listen, winning does create a lot of fun. I always say, show me a locker room that's having fun, show me a locker room that's winning, but then show me a locker room that's winning. It's a group that's having fun and that care about each other, and they all kind of work intertwined with each other.
Right. So I think that's one of the other takeaways, and then digging a little deeper into this, making other people look good, really. Taking that home and saying, are we making our employees look good? Are they making us look good? How can we improve that? And take it out of the just spreadsheet mode, right? These are human beings doing business with other human beings. So are there some of the softer skills maybe that you need to incorporate that a great coach would incorporate to really kind of pull people back together as opposed to just looking at results? It's like that book Ken Blanchard wrote many years ago called Raving Fans.
Love Ken Blanchard, love that book.
Yeah, he talks about the difference between going from hiring somebody to judging them. That we hire them and then we sit back and say, well, he's not doing his job right. Well, great, but did you actually coach them? Did you spend the time to help them understand what their role is and how important that role is to the success of the team? A lot of times the answer is, well, kind of, sort of.
Kind of management's a little bit of a lost art right now these days. Not a lot of teaching and explaining about management, about leadership. Everything's all result-based.
Right, and a lot of pressure to get those results.
Yeah, but not a lot of leadership in how you get the results.
No.
Not a lot of that conversation.
No, and so it goes back to the training. I was at a Caterpillar dealer here just recently in Charlotte, Carolina Cat, and they have a tremendous culture of positive encouragement and positive reinforcement, and they don't allow gossiping and backbiting and infighting to occur. They just cut it off at the knees right then because they said, no, that's not what we're about. That's not our culture. That's not what we value. Yeah. And their company's grown by leaps and bounds.
We changed here at Steiner too. Same thing. We had to get rid of some really good earners because it was too much infighting, too much negativity.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have a top salesperson that just doesn't play well with others. And I've been in the restaurant business for 22 years.
How is the restaurant, by the way?
Restaurant's doing well. You and I have had a couple of good meals.
You want to give that restaurant a little plug? I got to tell you that serious food. Salt Lake City,
Tuscany. Yeah, Tuscany restaurant.
Beautiful restaurant. Was the pork chop was it the pork chop?
Yeah, number one entree is the pork chop, soaked in molasses.
Never forget a pork chop.
We soak it in molasses brine for 3 days, cook it on the hardwood grill. It's been our number one entree for 22 years.
You can't go to Tuscany without stopping off there.
Yeah, you got to go to Salt Lake.
What's the place with the chocolate, with the pasta? And I'm trying to remember where Randy, we went there and they had this incredible chocolate, almost like a chocolate fondue.
Maybe it was one of the desserts we did. I mean,
there's another restaurant. Jack, do you remember we sent the seats to this guy in Salt Lake? That guy had the funny name. We'll come back to you on that. It was unbelievable. But this Tuscany is always the first place. But we always need a second place to go eat.
Well, we have 2 restaurants there. We've got the other place is Frank's, which is right next door, which is a little more presentation, sauce-oriented food, kind of a contemporary bistro kind of a feel. So we got 2 options. So you shouldn't go anywhere else. You have 2 nights.
I haven't been to France.
You've been there for 2 nights, 1 night Tuscany, 1 night France.
I haven't been to France.
Well, call me.
All right, I got to check that out. Salt Lake City is just so beautiful. Now, you're on Facebook. What's your preference? If somebody's out there wants to contact you, what's the best way?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn.
Just straight up
Mark Eaton, spelled out, and 7'4" at the end of it, 7FT4. And my website is 7foot4.com, 7FT4.
I like that. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Anything you want to close your remarks? I mean, you've got the book covered. Leadership is just, we could talk about this all day. And there's a lot of people watching that, that are business, but, you got to concentrate on some of the number result oriented.
You know what?
Everything's scalable result. Caring about people, caring about the culture.
Right. I think that's the biggest thing is just taking some time to read a few stories and look at, and reflect a little bit about how am I motivating others, how am I as an employee, how am I as a leader, from the standpoint of what makes a team work, because that's really all we're trying to do, is get everybody going the same direction on the same page at the same time, right? It's no different than playing in the NBA. If you get 5 guys to do that in the NBA, you're going to go deep into the playoffs.
That's true.
So I think that's all I'm trying to present here in a sports and business manner of teamwork.
The 4 commitments, Mark Eaton. Pre-order it. Don't buy this book. Buy 3 copies of this book. One for you, one for a friend, and one for someone who actually needs it. Someone who's running a business, someone who's running a group of people that can use a little bit of an adjustment on their culture. Buy 3 books. Pre-order it now. Mark, it's great having you.
Thanks so
My
much,
friend.
Brandon.
Good to
Really
see
appreciate
you.
it.